We are now live on Facebook and YouTube. Welcome to one and all for another session. Good morning for another session of daily learning and lockdown inspiration. Hope you're all well. And logging on, please do share your greetings as you log on. Boker Tov, right. I'm going to welcome you in just a moment. In the meantime, I invite you to share your greetings in the comments on either Facebook or YouTube. Our viewers are busy logging on now, so welcome aboard to those who are joining us. Hope you had a fascinating this and enjoying your restful weekend. Keeping safe, keeping healthy. And I'm going to welcome you personally as you log on. So let's welcome Shirley Feldman. Those who are sharing their greetings, I'm going to greet them back. Shirley Feldman, Tracy Mindel, thank you. Shavua Tov, Lionel Rubin. Good morning. Hilly Lipworth, good morning. Norman Stain, Anne Hack, Felicia Jenks, thank you all for joining. And viewers who are coming online on YouTube too, welcome aboard. Thank you very much for joining. We'll just give it a couple of minutes to allow for people to finish logging on, or to log on, should I say. And then we'll get going with our discussion for today of daily learning and lockdown inspiration. So welcome, and I hope you had a fantastic Shabbos. Still distant from shul. We're still distant from shul, but yet connected spiritually, that's for sure. If you're just logging on, I see our numbers are going up. So just let us know you're with us. Say hello, say good morning, share your greetings. That's the way Facebook and YouTube work. You're going to type your hello. We don't see you by face. So we ask you to join us and to share with us as we go. I see Brian Owen is with us, and he asks for us to learn for Yael Chana Bat Aviva for Refuah Shalema. Absolutely. We'll have her in mind, definitely. Just waiting for others to join. Right, we are close to 25 students here across the two platforms of Facebook and YouTube. So thank you very much all for joining. Thank you for being part of this in today's conversation. Good morning, Daryl and Shelley. Good to see you both here with us. And thank you for joining. We're going to give it one more minute, okay? Just to allow for others to join us. One more minute for people to log on. In the meantime, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to post them in the chat. I'd be very, very happy to welcome them and share them and discuss them. That'd be great. More personal. David Ginsburg, good morning on YouTube. Thank you. Right. Okay, let's get going here. So the question I have, which I want to start today's discussion with, is regarding abstaining. Abstaining from physicality, abstaining from the mundane, abstaining from the physical world. Is it a good thing, or is it not so good? Is it encouraged to abstain, or is it discouraged? On the one hand, to explain the dilemma, on the one hand, we're living in a world that God created. And the world that he created is part of his creation. That includes the animals of the world, that includes the fish of the world, that includes the vegetation of the world. It's all part of his world. And if it's all part of his world, then obviously it's here for us. And if it's here for us, then shouldn't we benefit from it? So that theory would discourage us from abstaining from the benefits of the world or from the pleasures of the world. The other side of it says that maybe the world is a distraction. Maybe God put us in this world to actually test us and check and see our loyalty and see how loyal are we and how dedicated are we to him. And therefore, as a result, we are commanded or encouraged to distance ourselves and separate ourselves. So that's the question of today. And I'll tell you what triggered this question. Good morning, Avril Walpert. I'll tell you what triggered this question. Good morning. I see people are logging on as we speak. Michael Stein, thank you. Norman Stein, Shavua Tov, Arnold Orkin, Eli Faglin. Good morning, mate. Thank you for joining us. Manfred Kalmek, Aline Dulovitz. I see Arnold has yahrzeit for your father, Yosef Yaakov. Thank you, Arnold. I'll be in touch with you. Yesher Koyach. For offering to sponsor this session. Beautiful. Thank you for the kind gesture. For Yosef Yaakov. Is that his name, Arnold? Yosef Yaakov? And then I'll contact you. So thank you, Arnold, for offering kindly to sponsor this session in memory of your father's yahrzeit. Toda rabah. Thank you. Larry, Mark Wachenheimer, good morning. Linda and Jaime Drew. Great. So I see you all. Ronnie Kotkus, good stuff. I'll tell you what triggered this question. Should we abstain or should we not abstain of the physical, mundane benefits of this world? And what triggered that question was one of the topics of yesterday's Torah portion. So we had many fascinating topics in yesterday's reading, and I hope that while we read the Torah at shul from the Torah, I hope you are opening up your Chumash at home and going through it with your family, with your spouse, with your kids, with your grandkids, whatever you can do or are allowed to do legally, to go through the parasha with them, either live in person or during the week over Zoom or whatever else, other platforms you choose. So what triggered that question was the story of the Nazir, okay, the Nazirite, the Nazir, which also was a topic of yesterday's Haftorah, which follows the discussion of the parasha because it speaks about Samson, Shimshon Hagibor, who we know was a Nazir as well. And what intrigued me is that balance, or maybe even that paradox that we find within the Nazir. Okay? What is a Nazir? A Nazir is someone who chooses to abstain. So he chooses to abstain from having haircuts, so grooming himself may be a physical pleasure of this world, and the Nazir chooses to abstain from any haircuts, so he abstains from grooming himself. He also abstains from wine. He also has to make sure he doesn't come close to a dead body. That's true. David Seif, good morning. But he chooses to abstain. Why? Because the physical pleasures of this world are distracting. And the Nazir is the one that dedicates himself totally to spirituality and to godliness and to the divine. And therefore he removes himself from the physical mundane pleasures. He abstains. On the other hand, and this is where the paradox is a little confusing. On the other hand, the Nazir has to bring a chatas offering. The Nazir has to bring a sin offering. Why does the Nazir bring a sin offering? Strange. It's a strange offering to bring a chatas offering. What did he do wrong of becoming a Nazir? Why at the end of his Nazirite period, however long he had committed to, why does he bring a chatas offering, a sin offering? And the commentaries explain is because his abstaining had a default or a shortfall to it. His abstaining actually had a problem. Why did he abstain? What's wrong with God's world? God put us into a world and he blessed us with the mundane and the material and physical benefits and pleasures of this world was to enhance our lives. And the Nazir is the one that separated himself from it. So to atone for that sin, he had to bring a korban offering, a chatas offering, a sin offering. Now, when you read that story, it creates a bit of conflict in my mind, or I'm sure it creates conflict in your minds too. So is it good to abstain? Is it not good to abstain? Am I praised? Am I complimented? Is the Nazir complimented or praised? Or is he not? That's the question. If any one of you have any insights to share on this point of abstaining or not abstaining, we'd love to hear from you. We welcome all our viewers to another session of Daily Lockdown and Lockdown Inspiration, Daily Learning and the Lockdown Inspiration. If you're just joining us now, please let us know you're with us. All you need to do is comment in the comments box. Share with us your name. Well, your name we see, but your greetings and your good morning. If I can ask the Facebookers to like and share our videos so that others can benefit from your viewing as well. Unfortunately, the YouTubers, I can't request that of you, but nonetheless, if you want to share the link, you can do that with your friends, and invite them to join us at the same time. I think the answer is to our paradox within the Nazir, within the Nazirite, that they're both right and they're both true. And one thing Judaism teaches us is that there's no absolutes in life, but in fact, life can be gray. You know, Dennis Solomon's Good Morning. You know, there's a famous joke about the guy who goes out to find a one-handed rabbi. And he goes searching for a rabbi who has one hand. Can he find a rabbi with one hand? And he goes, and he comes back and he tells his committee, I can't find a rabbi with one hand. And they stop and they ask him, why on earth were you looking for a rabbi with one hand? And he said, because I can't handle when the rabbis say, on the one hand this, and on the one hand that, on the other hand that. So I went out to look for a rabbi with one hand, but I couldn't find it because that's what rabbis are all about. One hand this, on the other hand that. So that's the story of the Nazir. On the one hand, we compliment him. He's a Nazir, and he's abstaining from physicality. On the other hand, we're telling him to bring a korban chatas, a sin offering, because he abstained. And I think the answer that the Torah is teaching us is that both are right. Both are correct, and there's no absolute. On the one hand, we've got to separate ourselves and distance ourselves. On the other hand, we've got to benefit from the world. The complicated thing about the Nazir is that he's living with the two simultaneously. You know, I think most of us can live with the two concepts at different points in our lives, and we'll elaborate on that point in a moment. What's confusing and very confusing about the Nazir is that he lives with the two realities at the same time. He's abstaining, but yet bringing a sin offering for abstaining at the same time. I'm not going to answer that today. Unfortunately, I can't answer that today. But what we're going to do today is elaborate on these two concepts. To abstain or not to abstain. That's the question of today. I'd love to hear from you. So if you want to share with us your comments, your questions, please do that. We've got about 35 students here to get together across Facebook and YouTube with us, which is fantastic. Thank you all for joining. We'd love to hear your input as to whether or not to abstain or not to abstain. We know that on Yom Kippur, we have a mitzvah in the Torah to abstain. The truth is we do that on all our fast days, to abstain and to fast. Yom Kippur is unique, and so is Tisha B'Av. It's a 24-hour fast, even longer. Most fasts are just morning to night. We have Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av that are full-on days, 24 hours, that we don't fast, we abstain. And therefore, the time there is to abstain. That's the instruction. Hold back, don't eat. But is that all the time? That's not all the time. We don't practice Yom Kippur all the time, do we? It wouldn't be healthy to practice Yom Kippur. On the contrary, we actually have an interesting commandment. An interesting commandment is that on Erev Yom Kippur, the Talmud tells us, on Erev Yom Kippur, the Gemara teaches us that we are obligated on Erev Yom Kippur to eat. That means don't abstain, but rather eat and benefit from what the world has to offer. And it's the most confusing thing because the Torah tells us, the sages teach us, that if we eat on Erev Yom Kippur, it's as if God instructed us to fast, or it's as if we've been fasting for 2 days. That's what the Gemara says, the Talmud tells us. The sages teach us that if we eat on Erev Yom Kippur, if we dine and we eat and we benefit from the world by eating, God will consider it as if we fasted Erev Yom Kippur and Yom Kippur 2 days. So there you go. On Erev Yom Kippur, we eat of the world. We eat of the benefits of the world. On Yom Kippur itself, we abstain. Look at that balance of both. Brian Owen writes, Bechira. And maybe God is teaching us Bechira. That's very possible. And maybe God is teaching us that sometimes we need to benefit from the world and sometimes we need to abstain from the world. But that's somewhat confusing. On Erev Yom Kippur, you should eat. On Yom Kippur itself, hold back and fast. I tell a story about a teacher who was a very holy rabbi. He lived in Israel. His name was Reb Mendel Futerfas. So Reb Mendel Futerfas was a teacher in the yeshiva, and he would from time to time invite Bachrim, students from the yeshiva, to join him at his house for Shabbos. And when they would go to his house for Shabbos, and him and his Rebbetzin would pile on the food. They would pull out food galore. Onto the table. There was challah and dips and soup and fish and meat and dessert. It was like a full-on feast. And they battled. The students had a big question to ask him. They said, Rebbe, in yeshiva, you teach us the concept of abstaining, of holding back, of stepping away. You teach us that not everything that's offered to us, not everything that's permissible, do we need to have. In fact, you've quoted to us, they said to him, the famous Hasidic text that says, that which is forbidden is forbidden. That which is permissible, you don't need to have. You've taught us that on and on, of how we're in this world, as Brian says correctly, to make the choice. We're in this world with so much offered to us, and we are told by Hashem how to abstain and hold back. And yet we come to your house now and you pull on a full-on feast for the meal. How do you reconcile the two? And the answer was, as he told them, he said, I'm doing my obligation as being a host. And my obligation as being a host is hachnasat orchim. That's my job. I've got to pull out whatever I can to feed you. Every item here has been invested in. Every item has been prepared with love to prepare for you as part of hachnasat orchim, inviting in guests into my home. So I'm doing my bit in order to cater for you. But you got your bit. as students who are learning in the yeshiva, and I may be your teacher, if abstaining is what you choose to do as part of your divine service, spiritual service, then abstain. But I'm going to do my bit and you're going to do your bit. That story just illustrates so clearly how there's no absolutes in Judaism. It's not, is it right or is it wrong? Should there be food on the table or should there not be food on the table? There is no absolutes. It depends on who you are and where you're holding. If you're the host, you have an obligation to put out a full-on meal for your guests. If you're the guest or you're the yeshiva student or someone who's going through a process of transformation and you choose to abstain from the meal, well, that's your choice. And good on you for making that choice. So the balance of both is right. We see it with husband and wife in their relationship as well. And this, again, ties into Brian's comment about Bechira. So I thank you, Brian, for your comment, because I think it's a key element here in trying to juggle the two aspects of abstaining or not abstaining within Judaism. So I think it's a good, valid point. When it comes to a relationship of husband and wife, are they allowed to be together? On the one hand, you can say, well, husband and wife are finally married. Husband and wife are halachically permissible now to one another. Whereas before marriage, Torah would not have allowed them to be together. After marriage, they're now permissible. So why abstain? But we know that that's true as part of the month. But when a woman is going through her menstruation period, then husband and wife can't be together. So suddenly you're told to abstain. So do I abstain or do I not abstain? That's the question. Sometimes yes, but sometimes no. I often sit with husbands and wives, or grooms and brides, should I say, before they get married. And this is a common part of our conversation. Because initially, boy and girl and bride think to themselves that the moment we get married, everything's permissible now. The moment we get married, the rabbi gives us a certificate of permission under rabbi's certification that we can now live together and be together. But suddenly the rabbi is telling them that it's not so simple. There may be points in their lives, not maybe, there will be points in their lives during the month when you go through a menstruation period that husband and wife can't be together according to halacha. So then they're told to abstain, which is a confusing part of the conversation. Am I allowed to be or am I not allowed to be? Can we be together or can we not be together? And the answer is, it depends. On the one hand, yes. On the other hand, no. And so this message of abstaining or not abstaining, of benefiting or not benefiting, is part of that quote, part of that question. Can we or can't we? And the Nazir is the one that encapsulates both at the same time. Somehow, at the same time, he's abstaining, but he brings a sin offering to atone for that sin. That seems to be confusing because it's the same person within the same act who's somehow juggling both. Do you understand the dilemma? You understand the complex of it? I'm not here to answer all these questions. I'm just here to highlight how complex our relationship with the world is. And I think that in most cases, there are times for this and there are times for that. Sometimes we can come close, sometimes we can't come close. The Kohen Gadol on the Holy of Holies had the opportunity of coming in to the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur. That's when he brought the incense into the Holy of Holies and he offered up the incense, but it was once a year. Once a year, the Kohen Gadol was allowed into the Holy of Holies. The rest of the year, he was told to abstain. Why? You're not holy enough. But I'm the Kohen Gadol in the Beis HaMikdash. What do you mean I'm not holy enough? Surely I'm holy. No. During the rest of the year, you're told to abstain, hold back. On Yom Kippur, you can go in. It's a holy day. D. Tanner from Cape Town. Thank you for joining us on YouTube. Thank you. Great to see you all here. If you're just logging on now to our conversation here this morning, please let us know you're with us. Please share a comment in the comments, either on YouTube or Facebook. We've got over 35 students here today. So it's fantastic to have you all here with us on both platforms. If you have any questions, please do put them into the chat. Talmud tells us that on Shabbos and Yom Tov, it's a mitzvah to eat. And halacha goes into the details of fish and wine. Ein simcha ela bebasa v'yayin. You got to have fish and wine. Fish, meat, and wine as part of the simcha and the celebration of Shabbos and Yom Tov. So we're encouraged to eat. Suddenly on Shabbos and Yom Tov, the eating becomes holy. Don't abstain. There's a myth out there, don't know where it came from, that on Shabbos and Yom Tov, we don't put on weight, so we can eat what we like, and we don't need to diet. I'm not so sure of that. I can't stretch it that far to say that one doesn't put on weight on Shabbos and Yom Tov. I think that's just a trick of either the dietitians to tell you that one day a week you can eat, or it's a trick of those who are on diets to think that they can get away with just eating on Shabbos. I won't go that route. But one thing I will say is that the halacha elaborates that oineg Shabbos, the enjoyment of Shabbos, is part of the eating of Shabbos. And by eating of Shabbos is part of the mitzvah of Shabbos. So abstaining on Shabbos is not a good thing. Obviously, you don't want to overdo it. We're not talking about overdoing it. We're talking about eating comfortably and nicely and indulging. And one is allowed to indulge on Shabbos and Yom Tov. But suddenly the rest of the week, we don't have that mitzvah. You don't have to eat meat, fish, and wine every day of the week. That wouldn't be healthy. But Shabbos, yes. So again, we see the contradiction or the oxymoron of abstaining or not abstaining. Do we indulge or do we not indulge? I think that a fundamental aspect we need to keep in mind as part of this process and the part of the balance of the conflicting approaches to this world is, what is my goal when indulging? Okay, this is one of the key aspects we have to keep in mind. When benefiting from this world, what am I having in mind at that time? When I enjoy the wine, which the Nazir can't have, or when I groom myself, which the Nazir can't do, what's my intention? What's my kavanah? What am I thinking? What's my goal? And this may help us in making that decision. If my goal is selfish, if my goal is purely for the sake of enjoyment, then maybe I should abstain. Maybe I should hold back. Because the more me is not healthy. The more selfishness is not healthy. So then I abstain. No, thank you. I don't need that right now. It's not good for me. It's not healthy. I'm dieting. Yeah. If my focus is about me, then I'm told to abstain. But if my focus is about God, or if my focus is about transforming physical into spiritual, maybe then I'm told to indulge, not to indulge per se, but to benefit. Like the story I told you about Reb Mendel, the older teacher of the yeshiva. In his mind, putting out food onto the Shabbos table. Okay, it happens to be Shabbos, so when it comes to Shabbos, the laws of abstaining sort of fall to the side. But in Reb Mendel's world, putting out food onto the Shabbos table or onto the table for his guests was not indulgence in physicality for selfish reasons. Putting out food on the table for his guests was part of serving God. Abraham Avinu teaches us the importance of what it means to be hospitable, what it means to put out food and to sustain our family, our guests. That was the mitzvah of Abraham. In fact, Abraham used his food as a way of convincing people to recognize God. So if that's my goal in food, if that's my goal in physicality, then sure, benefit. But if my goal is for selfish reasons, then maybe I should abstain and hold back. Murad Walker, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Anyone else that's joining, thank you for joining us. Please put your questions in the chat. We'd love to engage with you. And the same can be said with clothes as well. You know, clothes and dress are part of the indulgence of the human being in the physical world. How many millions and millions of dollars are spent on clothing throughout the year? Not just essential clothing, glamorous, fancy fashions and fads. Maybe not during lockdown, and that could be an eye-opener, how we can survive and live without shopping every second day. But shopping is a big part of life. Now, it comes to Shabbos, and we have something called Big Day Shabbos. It's called Shabbos clothes. According to halacha, one's supposed to get dressed in honor of the occasion, in your best outfit. That means your most expensive tailor-made suit, or your most expensive dress or skirt or whatever it may be. That's part of Jewish law. Get dressed up for the Shabbos occasion. Don't come in your mundane clothes to shul, but get dressed up. So what's halacha saying? Benefit from the world. Go to your local tailor and pay him for your most expensive suit, your most expensive outfit. Because when you come to shul on Shabbos and Yom Tov, get dressed up in your best. On the one hand. On the other hand, maybe overindulging in clothing is selfish or self-centered. Maybe too much focus on clothing. I remember my parents, we all moved from Australia to Israel when I was a teenager. My parents, God bless them, are still living in Israel till this day. And my mother often tells me that one of the reasons that she wanted to move to Israel, and she still loves it, is because clothing plays no role in society. Not just clothing, but indulgence and physicality plays no role in society in Israel. Whereas in the diaspora, maybe it plays more of a role. Some countries more than others, so we can't say it's all the same in Chutz La'aretz, in the diaspora. But she felt in Israel, people don't necessarily overindulge. They're comfortable in simple dress codes, and that makes them happy. Now think about that. On the one hand, halacha says, dress to the T, wear your most fanciest tie and suit and hat and shirt and outfit, whatever it may be. On the other hand, overindulgence is not healthy. It's self-centered. And so the Nazir shows us the two. We have over 40 students here now. So nice to see you all here and to have you all online with us. Thank you for joining. The Nazir teaches us the complex of both. And I don't have all the answers for you today. I don't have all the answers of when it's okay and when it's not okay. When do we indulge or benefit from the world, and when do we abstain? The one thing I have shown you today is that Judaism combines the two. On the one hand, sometimes it's good to abstain. On the other hand, it's not so good, and we should benefit from the world. And a key tool is to know what the goal is. Is the goal for myself, or is the goal for God? Is the food that I eat on Shabbos a Shabbostic thing? Or put out for my guests? Is that part of the mitzvah of Hachnasat Orchim, of hosting them? Or is it to overindulge myself? If it's to overindulge, it may not be so good. If it's to benefit from God's world and make God's world a kinder place, a more beautiful place, a more holy place, then maybe there is Kedusha, maybe there is holiness to it. So let's be careful. When living in God's world and benefiting, next time we go shopping, ask ourselves why we're going shopping. Next time we eat, ask ourselves why we're eating. It's a good question to ask either way. And as Brian said correctly, it's the bechira, it's the choice that we have. we can either choose to indulge and to benefit from God's world in a kosher way, in a holy way, or choose to abstain and thereby elevate ourselves and purify ourselves and make ourselves more spiritual and more holy. As Brian says again, Torah guidelines always, absolutely. So that's some of my thoughts for this morning based on the story of the Nazir, a complicated story of the Nazir who abstains but then brings a korban chatas, a sin offering. I hope some of these insights were beneficial, gets us thinking, food for thought. If you have any thoughts that you want to follow up on and share with us, you're more than welcome to. You can either do it in the chat box below on either Facebook or YouTube, or feel free to message me privately and personally, and we can continue the conversation. Torah is one long conversation. There's no absolutes. So any view or any take or any question, any answer is helpful for the picture that we're trying to establish of God's world based on God's Torah. Thank you all for joining us here this morning. Once again, if you haven't shared the video, share it now still, because people can watch it afterwards. And I look forward to meeting you here once again tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. on Facebook or YouTube. In the meantime, have a wonderful day. Keep safe, keep sane, and keep spiritual. All the best.